Let's say, hypothetically, that maybe you have a huge collection of LUTs. And maybe, possibly, you wanted to use those LUTs in the Source engine, or even Source 2 for whatever reason. Just like I did in my world-famous RP Hogwarts SBS.
Say what?
That's right, Hogwarts actually uses a recreation of the real Harry Potter film LUT. So I'm going to show you how to pretty much use any LUT to grade your levels instead of using the built-in engine tools. So I'm going to start out with Source 1. The Source engine, being absolutely no nonsense, apparently displays its color in Srgb, the exact same as a computer monitor. Disclaimer, I am not a colorist. I have no idea what I'm talking about. This entire video may be totally wrong, and all of my LUTs might be broken. We can confirm this by using this color checker model I made. This texture is based off the X-Rite Color Checker Classic non-legacy version, and it's using a texture I made based off of colors from this spreadsheet, which are not perfect but are close enough. The texture is also uncompressed, meaning that the colors shouldn't be any different than the original project file at all. Typically when you create textures in the Source engine, you'll use the DXT format, which can create some slight color change due to the way the DXT compression works. Now you can theoretically fix this without using an uncompressed texture, but since this is an internal tool that shouldn't be distributed with your games, uncompressed is the way to go. The texture is also unlit, meaning lighting from the environment won't affect its color at all. But if you do want that for realistic color grading purposes, I have a second skin on the model that will receive lighting. You can place this model as a static prop in your map with the second skin if you want really accurate lighting. So in-game, in this level that I made, knowing that there's no color correction currently active, in the console I'll type in poster1 to take a screenshot. This is a Gmod specific command and is probably not necessary, but I'm doing it anyway for consistency. So now I'll take this screenshot and I'll bring it into the project file for the original texture on the color checker model. Now I can sample each color and compare the two and prove that yes, Source is in fact not doing anything strange with the color of the image. I can now also prove that Source, or at least Gary's mod, does in fact apply color correction correctly. But to do that, we need to actually do what this video's main focus is, converting a standard LUT to a Source engine LUT. The first thing we need is a neutral, non-graded LUT in the file format that Source accepts, a .raw. Again, make sure you're on a map that has no color correction. I'll include this map along with the color checker and everything else used in this video in the description. Open your console and type in Color Correction UI and press enter. This is going to bring up the in-engine color correction tools. And to make a neutral LUT, just press save. Now I'll put it inside of a new folder. I'll call it Tutorial, and I'll name it NGL for non-graded LUT. The file path and name that the engine uses is arbitrary and can be anywhere as long as it's within the game directory structure. Now go and take this file we just created and drag it into Photoshop. These are the settings you're going to want to use. 32 pixels wide by 1024 high, 3 channels, interleaved, 8 bits, and a 0-byte header. Now that this is in Photoshop, you can simply apply standard LUT formats to it. Create a new adjustment layer, then select Color Lookup. You can also manually create any corrections you want using any of Photoshop's various tools if you want to get creative. Up here in 3D LUT file, you can choose one of the pre-installed LUTs that Photoshop comes with, or load your own. For this test, I'm just going to use the pre-installed Late Sunset LUT because it significantly alters the colors. Now I'll just go to Save As and select Photoshop RAW as my format. I'll give it a name and hit Save. Now in Hammer, I can select the color correction ent and give it a path to the new color correction file I just made. I'll compile the map, and now you'll see the color correction is working. I'll take another screenshot using the poster command, and then bring this one into my raw texture file again. I'm going to create the same adjustment layer I made on the raw file with the same Late Sunset LUT applied, but I'll make sure it's placed below this screenshot so we can compare the colors accurately. And once again, you can see that the colors are pretty much identical, proving that Gmod is in fact applying the LUT correctly. Older source games may be different, but the issue of LUT intensity seems to not be an issue here in Gary's mod, at least when you use this method. So now you can just go and create standard LUT files inside of much more powerful software like DaVinci Resolve and use it in Source. So I assume most people who have used color correction in Source probably kind of know how to do this to an extent, or at least it should be obvious. However, what you likely don't know is why you can't just pop any old LUT from who knows where into Source and call it a day. You see, there are two big issues: gamma and color space. We know Source Engine is Srgb just like our monitors, so it should also be using a gamma of 2.2 like a computer monitor should. Source can output different types of gamma, and does on different devices like consoles, but for our purposes, we are going to assume Source is 2.2 if it's in windowed mode. So, the vast majority of LUTs are not made for Srgb and 2.2 gamma. They are made for either Rec 709 with 2.4 gamma, which is the standard HD video color format, or they're made for one of the many different kinds of logarithmic formats. You can't use a LUT that was designed to grade ARRI Alexa log footage with Source because Source isn't in that format, and it will just look incorrect. Same goes for applying a log made for Rec 709 to Srgb. Now, lucky for us, the only big difference between Rec 709 and Srgb is the gamma value. The color gamut is apparently the exact same. Srgb has a gamma of 2.2, and Rec 709, well, people will always claim has no specified gamma, 99% of the time it's going to be 2.4. So if you want to apply a standard Rec 709 LUT to the Source Engine, you should probably first apply my LUT that converts a gamma of 2.2 to 2.4, then apply your standard LUTs to the file. Now theoretically, gamma really shouldn't actually matter, and the correction should work regardless of the gamma value, but in reality it does make a noticeable difference, especially in this kind of weird situation. Now I'm going to move on to Source 2. Source 2 is quite a bit different. Source 2 is most certainly not outputting Srgb, and unless I can find someone at Valve who I can email about this, I don't think anyone's gonna know what kind of goofy special snowflake ungraded color Source 2 outputs. However, I've somewhat reverse engineered it. I've created a LUT that gets whatever Source 2 is to as close to Srgb 2.2 as I possibly could. Meaning when I bring a screenshot from Source 2 into my original texture file, it's pretty dang close. I'm pretty sure Source 2 uses something very close to Canon's log format, called C-log. So adding external LUTs in Source 2 is pretty much the same process as in Source, and you can actually use your Source raw files in Source 2 if you want. But since those are LUTs that target Srgb, it will probably not look right in Source 2. And there's no way that I know of to export an ungraded neutral LUT like there is in Source from Source 2. So instead, we'll take an image of a neutral grade and apply our corrections to it, and then use that in Source 2. You just save this as a PNG and it just works. But again, if you're using a Rec 709 LUT, it's not going to look right in Source 2. So first you're going to have to apply my LUT that corrects Source 2 to Srgb, then apply a Srgb 2.2 to 2.4 LUT, then apply your normal Rec 709 LUTs. You should also be aware that the Source 2 post-processing tools have a lot more effects and features than a simple LUT can provide. So to recap, the Source Engine and Source 2 both do not display things in a way that typical LUTs are expecting, and unless you're handcrafting LUTs from scratch, you're going to need to convert to Rec 709 with a gamma of 2.4 or some other value that your LUT's expecting. So with the main part of the video out of the way, now I can talk about Luminance Values! Close the video now unless you want irreversible psychological trauma. Warning, do not research this topic. You will go down a never-ending spiral. You will have 500 tabs open. You will spend 3 days in Resolve looking at color charts. So, according to my graphics driver, my screen is full 8-bit Srgb color 2.2 gamma with the full 0 to 255 luminance value. YouTube is always Rec. 709 at 16 to 235 luminance, which is known as limited or partial or legal. Now, my OBS is usually set to record at Rec. 709 at 16 to 235, but wouldn't you think that because I'm using an RGB monitor with the full 0 to 255 luma, I should also record in that mode too? Well, I did a test, and in VLC it's clear that the full luma range is way darker than it should be. Look, see? But the color in the limited recording is off by a little bit. Okay, I can make a LUT to fix that, right? Wrong, because that's just the raw recording being played back in VLC. If I convert to ProRes for editing, which I think makes the video limited range anyway, then the resulting recordings are almost identical in color in Premiere, but there's still a very slight difference in this one dark area in Photoshop in the recording, and the full range one is the one that's accurate to the baseline screenshot. So basically, full range recording is more accurate, but maybe it isn't in full screen games with their own settings? Most people say the H.264 encoder always uses limited, but that doesn't make any sense since I do get a warning when I'm converting to ProRes that my full range is using a deprecated format. And everyone on the internet will tell you that you should always use 16 to 235 for recording in OBS, but here you can clearly see that the full range black value is more accurate and lighter after it's been converted. Everyone will also tell you that there's no perceivable difference, especially since your video editing software is going to convert it to limited anyway. Well, guess what? There certainly is a difference, especially when I exaggerate the levels. Both of these examples are screenshot from after the ProRes conversion, meaning they are both now limited. Here's one that was originally recorded in full range, and here's the one that was recorded in limited. And here is what it's supposed to look like, a direct screenshot, not from a recording at all. You can see the colors on the limited recording are a little bit more green than they should be. The color on the full range one isn't perfectly the same, but it's a lot closer. When it comes to the gradient blockiness, the full range one is a little bit better than the limited, but not by a lot. So what does all this have to do with source engine color grading and gamma values? Apparently nothing at all. I'm pretty sure that video games and color correction LUTs use the full range, but I don't know. I have no clue how any of this actually works under the hood. Can you even see any differences on this video in those examples? YouTube does change the color and quality of a video by quite a lot. How do gamma values change based off of full versus partial range? Is OBS stretching the range or clamping it? What about the conversion? And what the hell is this 16 to 255 mode on my camera? I don't know! But maybe this is all just something to have in mind if you ever run across something like this. I hope you enjoyed my tech talk. Make sure you get subscribed so you don't miss next week's Blocktober video, where I'll talk about something, I don't know.